Roll call, please, Lauren.
Commissioner Nieder.
Here.
Commissioner Fauci.
I'm here.
Commissioner Eichelberger.
I'm present.
We will open up the floor to public comment and ask for non-agenda items. If there's any public comment to be made on non-agenda items, now would be a good time to do so. If not, we'll roll into the approval of the meeting minutes from September 18th.
I'll move to approve.
Moved. Is there a second? Thank you. Seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. First up, we have a presentation by the Solar United Neighbors and Cumberland Dolphin Solar Co-op. Monica, hi there, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me today. Really appreciate your time. So I'm Monica Carey. I'm the Pennsylvania Program Director for Solar United Neighbors, and I wanted to share a little bit about our Dolphin Cumberland Solar Co-op. We'll actually start by giving a little bit of information about my organization. So Solar United Neighbors is a national 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are vendor neutral, and what we do is provide education and consumer protections for people who are interested in going solar on their homes, their nonprofits, and their small businesses. Sun got started in 2007. Our founder, Anya Spoolman, pictured there, helped her family and 50 homes in her neighborhood go solar all at the same time. And they discovered through the process that going solar is an incredibly intimidating process. It's expensive, and solar on your home lasts for 25 years, which is a lot longer than a lot of people are prepared to think about. And so from that was born the idea of the solar co-op. And we now have members in all 50 states, programs in 11 states, as well as Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., and over 420 solar co-ops that we've run. And in Pennsylvania, we've actually been a program since 2018 and have helped 200 people go solar here in the state. And you can see some of our numbers, but this is work specifically through our solar co-ops, which is essentially when a large group of homeowners, nonprofits, and small businesses go solar all at the same time, and they're able to get a customized quote from an installer. And then Sun provides expertise. We help people look through their proposals, understand the technical aspects of it, as well as contract language, so that they're really confident with whatever choice they end up making. So I just wanted to share, a solar co-op is completely free to join. There is no obligation to go solar through the co-op or with the co-op installer. It is to provide.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Can you please mute Gary?
Okay. If you have he's muted. I'm sorry.
So it's really an opportunity to get a lot of education about going solar. And so we actually launched the Cumberland Dolphin Solar Co-op on August 12th. And we are kind of going through those first couple of months. When we have about 30 co-op members, Sun will issue a request for proposals from local installers that service Cumberland and Dauphin counties. And it's the co-op members themselves who actually choose the installer. We're there to help facilitate the process, but we're vendor neutral and we're not the ones getting solar installed. So we think it's really important that the members are the ones who choose the installer. And at that point, the installer will begin providing customized proposals for free at the competitive co-op rate to co-op members. And there are a number of criteria that co-op members will provide as their priorities when selecting an installer. So we help facilitate a really holistic view of choosing installer. It's not just the lowest price. It's really going to be somebody who services the entire group of customers, make sure that they have a positive experience. We know that there are a lot of scammy installers out there, and that's part of the service that Sun provides, to make sure that it's a really positive experience that people can trust. And so right now we actually have a fourth partner. So we have 4 local organizations that are partnering with us on this co-op, 2 from Derry Township in Dauphin County, Move Past Plastic, and then Mechanicsburg Borough just signed on as a partner this week. And so I wanted to speak with you today about the idea of partnering with Cumberland County as a partner for the Dauphin Cumberland Solar Co-op. This is, an incomplete list of all of the partners we've had across the state in the past. And you can see they vary widely, but we've worked with county and other municipal governments in the past, particularly in Center County. We have really strong relationships up there. And a partner is essentially an organization that believes in the mission of helping people go solar in your residence in the county, and willing to promote the co-op to your audience. And so we provide lots of materials for helping you to do that. And then we at Sun, we're actually the ones who are organizing and managing the solar co-op. We do sessions with the installer to make sure that everything is going according to schedule and that they are providing contracts according to the terms that they bid with, to make sure that they're actually fulfilling their side of the agreement. We're educating the co-op members. We have free Solar 101 informational sessions. And then we also promote the co-op and we do co-promotion. And so I'm actually going to pause here and just see if you have any questions. Happy to answer any of these that are on the screen too.
Your top one
Top
is the one that is
Yeah, of
in
course.
my head.
That's the number one question. Yeah, so Sun, we are primarily funded through philanthropic grants. Energy Foundation is our primary funder in Pennsylvania. And then, so that's about 3/4 of our funding. The majority of the rest of it is from individual donors who believe in our mission and our work. And then the last little bit comes from the co-ops. It is every time a co-op member signs a contract with the co-op installer, the installer provides us a $600 referral fee, which is kind of industry standard for contract work, that referral fee, but it again does not impact the cost of solar for the homeowner and is kind of just an industry standard.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions or any other information I can provide?
I think some of those are good questions, though. Do they have to be neighbors? Like how broad is?
Oh, yeah.
How broad is the network,
Yeah, so they do not have to be neighbors. They, right now the geographic bounds are Cumberland and Dauphin counties. And that can be, widely varied as far apart geographically. It's really just about having an installer that will service both of those geographic regions. The co-op is open to homeowners, nonprofits, and small businesses. And I guess that fourth question, so a co-op member is somebody who's considering going solar, and a partner is somebody who promotes the co-op. They don't necessarily have to be going solar themselves.
And when you say small business, I'm curious as to how you define that. Is it a in-home business, or is there a size that a property that you're restricted to marketing to or something?
Yeah, so it really comes down to kind of the size of the installation that they would install, because the installers are really kind of bidding with a residential system in mind. So the small business is going to be something similar to maybe like a small church at the largest. And then a lot of the installers will also provide commercial pricing. So, somebody with more roof space would be able to join the co-op for education, but they might be able to get a better deal if they go solar themselves.
And then I guess the only other question I had, it looks like you use, I understand that you're here to ask us to partner with you and somewhat endorse this program through the county. Is there a review process for any time that you would use our logo on items, or that we would see what materials would be distributed?
We can absolutely do that in advance. We have kind of pre-made materials, and we can, for ease, agree to using your logo on only those materials. But so essentially it's our co-op webpage, which has a lot of the information, and it's where co-op members actually join. And then we have some flyers that include kind of that timeline that I showed you, as well as pricing tables for what to expect to pay for solar. Both of those could include the logo. And then I also recognize that there are sometimes sensitivities about that. And so if that's something you would prefer not to do, that's also completely acceptable.
Okay.
So would that make us a member, a partner, a promoter?
A partner,
Okay.
because a partner promotes.
Okay.
Members are the ones who are going solar. Yeah.
So I guess I would ask a couple of questions. We have in our audience our resident expert on solar, our planning director, Kirk Stoner. And I think before I would agree to this, I would like maybe some references from some of your other partners, please, to know how their engagement has been with the program.
Yes.
So, but Kirk, are there any questions that are coming to mind for you?
No, so Elizabeth Grant and I met with Monica a few months ago to discuss some. We believe this is implementation of our climate action plan. We completed in June of 2022. If you remember that, the approach to implementation of that plan was kind of a menu type approach for residents, businesses, and local governments. We can't do everything ourselves to implement that plan at the county. So we're looking to partners like Monica's group to help our residents and our small businesses to implement some of the initiatives in there, solar being one of them. So we looked at this as a positive step. It's a very low risk, no risk really for the county, no cost for the county. It's an excellent way for us to promote a partner program and get more done through our climate action plan.
Monica, do you have a concern about finding enough solar providers?
That's a good question, because we haven't worked in this region before. However, I guess my concern is that we wouldn't be able to find enough local solar installers. There are quite a few that operate within the state or even just kind of in southern Pennsylvania broadly. But ones that are kind of headquartered in Cumberland or Dauphin County maybe are rarer. That's more my concern.
Well, I appreciate you wanting to use local and companies that are in Cumberland County.
Yeah, we do think that that's really important. And we notice we have kind of a help desk for people all across the country who are going solar. And we see that most of the complaints come for the national companies. So we would prefer to be able to use local companies.
All right.
Well, thank you so
Thanks.
much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Penn State Agricultural Extension. With Donna here with an update. Hello, Donna. Welcome. You can pull another chair.
We had another meeting, we're always multitasking.
Yeah.
But thank you for inviting us this quarter to give our update. And Annie and I are always pleased to showcase the work that Extension does. And we cannot do what we do without the county. And we're always here to thank you for supporting our programs. And you show up for us in a big way. We appreciate that. This quarter, water quality has been a big topic, and we have access to programs to look at the Penn State website and see who in the state is looking for information and what they're looking for. And in Cumberland County, one of the top web searches for this quarter was water quality and items involved around water quality. Lacey, our admin assistant in the office, she reported that she is sending out lots of water test kits to community members. And even you've seen that in other counties as well.
Certainly, yes. Certainly our Franklin, Adams County and Cumberland offices have really had a lot of, and even Dauphin, stretching up into Dauphin. People are concerned about well quality, especially.
I don't mean to assume, but is this at all related that you, or even anecdotally, that you find it's related to food processing
Yes,
residuals on
absolutely.
farm fields?
And I would say some of the people that come in They are, you know, I always find like if I don't have hot water, I'm miserable for a day. Imagine your water being contaminated or feeling that your well isn't drinkable. They are absolutely bereft when they come in. So being able to get a baseline test is really important. And then we do education as well on top of that for well, you know, how to maintain your well and test your well. So.
And is this data retrievable to us as to what those tests are revealing, even if they're
We are
blind?
working on that, yeah, to get an aggregate. This has been, I would say over the last 6 months, it's been a really big focus. There were some wells that were contaminated in Franklin that, you know, homeowners can't use their water anymore. So I think that kind of sparked a lot of this, as well as a lot of the farmers in the area even have complained about the residuals being spread onto fields. So I think it's been a really recent issue, but we should be able to capture that data soon.
Okay, great. We would love to see that.
Yeah, me
when you
too.
have it. Yeah, thank you.
And that, what Annie's saying ties into our workshops, are seeing, one had standing room only because it was about water quality. We have some even happening down in Adams County that are filling up for people to talk about septic systems. So people are interested in this topic. So it's great that we have our Master Watershed Steward program, that they're basically training citizen scientists to go out and teach about environmental restoration and water quality. And they're sort of a trusted member of the community because they are one of the community members, and they don't have anything to sell or gain by just giving you information, and this is how you need to proceed. It's great to see those volunteers working in other programs like the Buffer Action Team, and they have webinars coming up doing research on the barriers to planting buffers, and then looking at the installation and maintenance, because how many plantings have you seen? All these lovely photos and people are there planting, and then, you know, go back 6 weeks later and how many people are still there celebrating that there's been a buffer planted. You know, we've forgotten, we've moved on. And we're also going to be sharing some case studies of this is what worked, and how do you need to promote, what do you need to promote the success of these plantings? So the Master Watershed Stewards have worked with Chesapeake Bay Foundation to train who they call riparian rangers, and they are all across the state. And these are folks who are volunteers, and they're trained to go into a buffer or planted area and identify, okay, what needs to be done here? We need to remove these invasive weeds, or, you know, these are tubes that have been cut and need to be replaced, or things are fallen over. They put bird netting over the tubes. Well, after a certain amount of time, that netting needs to come off. So they're always out there looking. And the great thing, I live in a neighborhood that has riparian rangers. And the great thing is someone's always walking by in a neighborhood, and those folks are highly educated and dedicated. So they're talking to the neighbors and all the people passing by and saying, this is why we're here, and these are why these tubes are here, and this is why it's important. So having those citizen scientists is a great program. We're also working locally with Dickinson's Alarm, and that's the Alliance for Aquatic Resource Monitoring, and they're monitoring water quality. So we have people going out in the streams and looking at taking tests and seeing what are we finding in the water. And then if you're very lucky, you get to do like a macro or macro invertebrates. And that is always fun, especially if you know some homeschool families or people with young children, to be able to dip in a stream and see what's living here and what does this mean if we have these certain kinds of creatures in the water. You were there. I was there with my family, and it made an impact on my son. He got his degree in environmental resource management. So it made it, that was years ago now. We have a full-time water educator, Andy Yensha, on staff, And he has been very busy, as Annie said again, with those well water testing, and he's able to do some testing in-house, and he's able to explain things on, you know, the homeowner level. He's also working with groundwater programs and looking at stormwater friendly practices. He's working with the master gardeners, and they were just at Frederickson Library, and we're talking about lawn care that's environmentally friendly lawn care. So we're not being judgmental. We're saying, here's some things that you can do to help. And that master gardener program is very strong and partnering with Andy on the water team and with Natalie with Master Watershed Stewards. And thank you, Commissioner Niderer, for coming to the Master Gardener picnic this summer. They are such a passionate group, and Ellie is a testament to what you can do to manage volunteers with such diverse passions and keep them all focused on horticulture and community.
The amount of hours that are contributed amongst that group is just unbelievable to me, and with the education that they provide. So well done by Ellie and her group.
They are so proud when they have their pins, and when we meet them in the office, you can tell what their passion is, and they're at this garden or they're going over here. And I learned from one in the hallway this week that therapeutic gardening, and I was thinking of therapeutic gardening as I'm getting out of my headspace. And she said, no, we're looking at dexterity. So we have projects for people in different senior centers where they're still being able to use those small motor skills. And I never thought of that. And there was the Master Gardener able to tell me more than what we'll share here with you. They've been out to community events just this quarter and seen 1,400 people, and have been preaching about sustainable horticulture practices. And then we'll move in to our 4-H program. And I understand that you will be coming next week to the recognition banquet. And there is so much to celebrate in the 4-H program. We've had several camps and even a new collaboration with the Carlisle Barracks. They took the Alpaca Club, went to the barracks and to youth services and the Child Development Center. And for their summer camp, they took animals, and then they took fiber, and then they had projects to do with the kids of making things with that alpaca fiber. And now they're looking at what other STEM-based programs can they do throughout the year. I mean, these are kids that they're probably, if their parents are in the military or working with military, they're probably not having access to a farm. But it looks like they might even be able to do some embryology programs with those children and after school programs. So that's exciting. Our hippology senior team just won states, and I had to say, what is hippology?
Thank you, because I was going to ask.
and it's equine science. And they need to know about the nutrition and the care of horses. And they've placed so well that they're going to go to Columbus, Ohio in October to compete in the All-American Quarter Horse Congress. And evidently that's the largest breed horse event in the world. So our local Cumberland kids are going there. Then they're going to the Eastern National 4-H Roundup in Kentucky and will be competing. And we have two county employees, Mindy and Becky. One works in elections and one works for a district magistrate. They work for the county, and those are the advisors with the hippology club. So it's nice to see that impact with our youth. And then we have other youth that aren't as fortunate. So we have Amy Santorelli, who's our nutrition education advisor, and you will never see her in the office unless she's just pulling a wagon with more materials to take out to programming. She's been working with the Cumberland County Intermediate Unit Elect, and she has a 6-week series just starting again with 12 to 15 teens who are either pregnant or parenting teens. And she is just very excited to be working with this group. She also spent the summer at Play Zone with West Shore Recreation and saw 50 youth regularly through the summer to provide nutrition programming. She goes regularly to New Hope Ministries on West Shore, Mechanicsburg, and Enola centers. And there it's how do you stretch your food dollars? And she identified at New Hope Ministries in Enola that there were folks saying, I have diabetes. I can't eat this or I struggle with this. So Amy doesn't teach about diabetes, but we have Sarah Davis, who's a licensed nutritionist, and she's stationed out of Adams, but she covers Cumberland County. She teaches Dining with Diabetes, which is a 6-week course where they invite folks who are either living with that or living with someone who struggles with that and or providing meals. So they're doing that program. There's going to be a meal served every evening, and the New Hope Ministries is going to send those ingredients as well back. So the people taking that class not only will have a demo and be eating that food at that training, but also be able to take it home and have it with their family at later that week. So that's just one of the things where our educators, we're always talking about how great they collaborate. And even though they work for this team, they're always going across teams and looking at what else can we do. And when there's a need identified, they're always looking at how can we get this, out for the community. One of the things that Sarah Davis has been looking at is our LIFT classes, and that's our seniors who are trying to stay active, and they do exercise for 6 to 8 week programs. And our Mechanicsburg location is filling up the day registration open. So we're looking for other locations if you have that we could have 25 to 30 people in a room that they could do some exercise, and it would be a facility they could easily get in and out of, and parking would be an accommodation as well. If you know of something that you can send our way, we're looking at expanding that program. And then Sarah's also expanding our home food preservation programs. And if you know anyone who does pressure gauge canning, they need to be calibrated. And we can do that. Just call our office, and we have folks that can come and make sure that those are working properly. And that's a huge food safety issue that's easy to address. And the last that I'll bring, because I know there's so many more. I had to choose just these. Miranda Harple is our marketing business development education specialist. And she's out working with local producers, local farmers, people with a business idea. And she's saying, how can you market this on social media? Or what are the things you need to know to start an LLC? She's had just 127 people come to her Food for Profit Getting Started with Value Added Products program this quarter, and was very excited about that, and continuing to work with her summer business series that she collaborates with Pennsylvania Department of Ag. She knows what grants and things are coming out that our local producers would be able to use to help expand their businesses. And I asked her, what's one story that you're super proud of that recently happened? And she said she was working with a first generation farmer from Cumberland County to get them started with an LLC and get their outline for their business. And, that's just a one-on-one. And that's one of the things that Extension, it's so rewarding when we get to just make that one impact. And, you guys make that possible for us, and we really appreciate that. And thank you for bringing us in every quarter to give you these updates and for the community to be able to hear them as well. If you have any questions or suggestions for us?
Thank you, Donna. I was looking at Annie Huff when you were saying looking for locations. I don't know if our senior centers would be potential locations for the items that you were talking about. So if you want to follow up with her, maybe she could connect you to those folks and see if that would be a good facility, because what it sounds like a wonderful program. And thank you for also updating us on anything that you can do to help create sustainability around agriculture in Cumberland County. It's getting harder and harder to do, and it's a real, it's an important component to our life here and the fabric of Cumberland County. So I appreciate that very much. And then the water quality, anytime you have other, any other reporting on that, we would welcome seeing that. It is certainly an issue. And last but not least, Donna, I have to say, you come with the best names: a buffer action team, a riparian ranger, and a citizen scientist. I just can't decide which one I'm gonna try and strive for. So thank you.
So I was sharing with my colleagues this morning, and I know Stacy's gonna reach out. But I think there are some real opportunities for our master watershed people and our master gardeners that are coming up in the next, I mean, they're here now if you want them. But really, really excellent opportunities. And the part of the new county comp plan is a potential water study. And boy, I think those master watershed people could be instrumental in assisting with that. And one of the things I mentioned this morning was in Camp Hill, they did a riparian buffer on the spring, right? That leaves, right? It leaves that person's yard. It comes down through, and there were some people that were really unhappy about that riparian buffer. And there's the opportunity for riparian rangers to be explaining that. I think there's a lot of good things and really great opportunities coming for you. Thank you.
I have a question on the water quality issue. It's been a few years since I've been involved in this one, but one of the problems that Pennsylvania had faced for years was that we had the most lax well construction standards, especially in the Northeast, and that often led to unnecessary contamination issues. So I'm not familiar with where that stands now. I know the issue was put before the legislature multiple times without success, but it's been a bunch of years since I was involved in that. So do we know anything about that? Do we know if that is a step that's been taken, if we're addressing that?
I know the person to ask in our office will be Andy Yensha, and I can put that question to him. He has talked about there's an online training about preserving your well and keeping it pesticide free, and he is looking at revamping that right now. Because I'll ask him about your question with the wells.
Construction standard, yeah, that'd be good to know. I mean, that seems like a step that the state should take if it has not already.
And Donna, if you want to just share that answer out to the board, would be great.
Will do. And Andy is always able to answer questions. So if you're even in a meeting and saying, I wonder what, just call over to the office and we can put you through to Andy, or get that question to him immediately, because it is something that, like Andy said, you want to turn that spigot on and know that the water is safe to drink.
Absolutely. And that water comes out. All right. I think that's it for us. So thank you. Thank you both very much. All right. Next up, I think this is and anyone is welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave if you don't want to stay for the remainder of the meeting. I understand. We have a discussion and possible motion to approve the preliminary concept of the Human Services Policy Team Fund proposal. Yes, Ms. Gresh.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, commissioners. So I am here with my Human Services Policy team members to present our plan and motion to approve our plan and its execution. So as you're aware, you commissioned an exploratory committee to look at what to do with the funds of the sale of the nursing home. And we had many residents volunteer to be on the committee. They met with the department heads individually of each of the human service departments. They did a countywide survey and they also did all their own research. There are many of them, I believe, in the room right now. And so we do want to take a moment and thank them for all their time and everything they put into it. They did meet with us, and really everything that they developed is the foundation to where we have moved forward with the plan. Their main recommendation was from the exploratory committee was to create an endowment fund that would be overseen by the commissioners and a citizens advisory panel that would involve people outside of the county. And the main conflict that the human service departments have with that is related specifically to confidentiality. We are unable and bound by our own confidentiality rules, unable to share any type of information, and not just names and stuff, but even just circumstances of who we would be paying that could potentially release a client's situation or name to anybody in the public. The Human Service Policy Team Fund, we want to also use the social determinants of health, which again mirrors what the exploratory committee looked at as well. And as you can see here, there are 5 domains to the social determinants of health. And these are the conditions where people live and thrive and learn. And so it is a way that we use these to figure out what does a person need to be successful. So what our proposal is for the Board of Commissioners to place $100,000 into our fund. And then, that money is from the interest of the sale of the nursing home. And we will utilize that then for what we would bring forward to pay for things. So sorry, I'll explain it in the next slide. I feel like they should have been backwards. So each human service department is the expert in what we do. We know what our funding mechanisms are. We know what our clients need. We know how we can support anybody in the community for a one-time need. And each of us are very different. Obviously, I work with children. We have veterans. We have aging. So we have a lot of different ones. So what we want to do is have a situation will arise within one of our departments, create a form that would bring it to me. As the expert of my funding streams in my department, I would take the time to look at that form and ensure that the funding is not available in any other way. So there would be no cross issues with trying to be funded in an alternative way. Once I put it through what I would review of it and bring it forward, we would then look to use this fund's money to help that individual. Again, it's a one-time need to help them get on their way. It could be a job training, lots of different types of examples. The Human Service Policy Team then will review this at our regular scheduled meeting. So we will be able to see and kind of commission, like check on each other to ensure we're adhering to our plan, that no one department's using more than another or anything like that, but that we're all kind of holding each other accountable for that. So what I wanted to do is give my members of the other human service directors a minute to see if any of them would like to share how they could see this fund directly help.
I'm Annie Huff. I'm the Aging and Community Services Director. One example for our program would be for a one-time clean out for a hoarding or bed bug situation that is preventing an older adult from receiving needed in-home services. Because providers feel like they can't safely send a direct care worker into a home that's in that condition. And the older adult may be unable to afford that clean out, all of the cost or some of the cost on their own. We would, of course, also make appropriate referrals to other supports so that there's long-term success, a church for help cleaning, mental health services, meals, etc., so that they didn't end up in the same situation again. We were able to provide this on a limited basis when we had COVID dollars, and we found it made a huge difference between somebody being able to stay safely in their home for a longer period of time with a higher quality of life versus zoning issues, falls, infections, an eventual decline that could result in a more restrictive care setting.
For children and youth, I would just share one of the ways we could see this being impactful is we oftentimes have children that need very specialized therapy that is not covered by medical assistance or things like that. And so the county does pay for those therapies. So again, this could be something that could help support those children.
Jack Carroll from Drug and Alcohol. I mean, there are a number of different ways that we would be able to take advantage of this fund. As you know, a majority of the clients that we work with have limited resources. And when someone is in early stage recovery, there's a lot of financial needs that they have. Sometimes in the past, we've covered the cost of clothes for somebody because they're homeless or they're not homeless, but they're looking for a job. They want to be able to have decent clothes to be able to wear to their job interviews. A lot of times we look for resources to help somebody with housing related needs. They may need money to cover a down payment to be able to secure an apartment. Or they might need funds to help pay off some utility bills so they don't lose their apartment. We don't want somebody who has a place to live to lose that. That can certainly throw a monkey wrench into their recovery. We also can use this with transportation needs, sometimes to cover the cost of bus passes to be able to meet their appointments with probation. I can think of one occasion where we had somebody who had their driver's license. Sometimes our folks have lost their driver's license. They had their driver's license, but their car wasn't working. So we were able to come up with some funding to help them get their car repaired so that they could keep their job and again, sustain their recovery. So those are a few examples of how I would imagine us using this.
Andy Benner with Juvenile Probation. For us, as I thought about this, one of the biggest needs that we have or gaps in service that we have and resources is with our transitional age youth. A lot of youth that are 18, 19 years old that we've worked with for a number of years within the Juvenile Probation Department. One of the biggest challenges is at times we have those youth in residential facilities and they've aged out of the system or have completed their treatment. And, as sad as it is, they don't have any resources. Their family has abandoned them. We don't have any good, stable release points for these youth. And oftentimes they're released to situations that are unstable. And for us, we've always felt like if we had a resource to be able to assist, a number of the issues that Jack talks about, but especially with the housing piece, we do have some local partners in the community that have transitional type living homes. However, it costs a down payment for rent or it costs 2 months rent to be able to get them started. And we don't have those types of resources because they fall out of some of the funding sources that we have to be able to utilize payment for those. So, being able to help those youth, I know even with my own children, sometimes 18-year-olds just need to get over that barrier or those couple barriers. And once they kind of get started, they start moving forward. So to be able to have some resources available to allow for a month or two in some type of transitional living situation that we typically don't have access to fund now, to get those youth started with some mentors and be able to start engaging in some employment services. And it would be better than releasing them just back into the street or back into the community. So I think that's probably one of the bigger items that we would look at within the Juvenile Probation Department. One of the biggest needs we have.
I think Robin Tollins is on. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, I am filling in for Annie and Mark. I apologize for them not being there. I would echo everything that everyone else has said for both our IDD and MH systems, being able to support individuals in the community, to maintain in the community, accessing any type of one-time funding. Some of the things Jack mentioned with transportation, with housing, with employment. We currently, on the mental health side, are utilizing a similar process with reinvestment funds for those that have medical assistance and are involved in the mental health or substance abuse system. And it has worked very well in supporting them with a one-time funding to address whatever those needs might be. We've helped folks get their cars repaired. We've helped folks pay a security deposit. We've helped folks pay back rent to avoid eviction. We've helped folks get their driver's license, pay for the driver's license, obtaining the birth certificate, or getting a refrigerator for their home. There's been a variety of things that has really helped to support their mental health and their recovery in order to maintain where they're at. And those funds have been just so beneficial to those folks. We, obviously, the more we can do of that, the better. As everyone has said, as everyone is well aware, funding is tight. So this is a way to do that and support people in the community. Then I think that we'll also see some more stability for those folks and potentially less need for the services that are at a higher cost.
Thank you, Robin.
Peter? Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter Callen with Veterans Services. And for Veterans Affairs and Veterans in Cumberland County, we typically, when we need to provide some type of assistance like this, have two avenues that we go to. One is the Veterans Temporary Assistance Grant through the state, and then the other one is a local nonprofit through PA Wounded Warriors. Both of those have strict criteria that we have to adhere to when we're requesting that assistance, and both of them only allow assistance one time per calendar year. What we are finding with our current veteran population, as they get older and older, their rents are increasing, their basic living expenses are going up, so that they don't have any wiggle room if something happens. Their roof gets a leak, or their basement floods, their electric bill is a little bit higher one month. And so if we have already utilized all of our avenues of assistance, and we work with Annie as well all the time to make sure we're not duplicating services or that we can't go to them, we really don't have something as an exception, for those circumstances when we might need something that's out of the scope of what we have the ability to provide. So this would allow us to be able to do that in those situations.
Thank you. So next steps, we as a group, we need to continue our planning. We need to bring the controller's office in and step through all the details, development of the form, how to process it, if we're going to involve a third-party vendor, and how we're going to continue to meet the needs. We need to establish internal controls, discuss our own confidentiality, and assure, obviously, if there's any audits to the ballots. So I just want to reiterate that this is a payment of last resort. It's a one-time. We really took exactly what the exploratory and just brought it really in-house with the subject experts so that we are able to kind of help monitor it. Any questions?
I have a question for you, Nikki. And I know that every one of our human service providers is familiar with me calling you on the phone and going, I have a constituent who needs something, who doesn't fit into any one of your programs. But is this something that would be that could be open to assist with constituents in that realm? And one of the things I'm thinking of was the person, a senior who called and said, I can't get my car fixed, right? I'm wondering, is this something that could be used for that? I know we would have to properly vet, Nikki. I'm well aware of that. Yes.
So I think, and others step up if you feel you can. I think what we really want is to be open and working with one of our departments. Obviously, we then know, one, they live in Cumberland County. Yes. They're not working with multiple agencies to try to get the same money. I do think some of that needs to be put into place. what we're very lucky here is the human service departments, we work really well together and we do all of our, we share clients, but we check on each other when those things happen. So I would say they would have to be open with one of us. They would have to have some type of need underneath us to get to that in order to go through all the controls.
Right, and so one of the things that I do when that happens, and I know Commissioner Nieder does this also, is that person goes directly to Annie. Right, and then Annie goes, oh, I know that we have services available and we can assist. So I just want to make sure that that we're open to those kinds of things. It doesn't mean that we're just willy-nilly handing out money.
Absolutely.
Right, but I think those things it's important to have that. I think too about the constituent who needs housing. And because federal regulations are so tough with HUD, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority can't get the assistance, the rental assistance that she needs. And so I think about that person who could be part of our program and then could get help with that, right? Just needs the lift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So is Gary still online? Gary, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have some questions. So what we heard was that there are these need cases that were laid out by each of you specifically. So my first question is, so prior to this fund, those needs were not being addressed through any existing sources?
In my case, when we had COVID dollars, we were able to meet that need somewhat, and it was on a limited basis. We would do the same thing with this fund as we do now, which is to check for our other resources, call the local resources, see if there is anything in place. For those that there isn't much we can do. We try to provide other supports to help, but
okay. My follow. Is there somebody else wanted to comment on that?
Yes.
I would just add to that too, when we aren't able to get a yes from our sources, that's really all we can do other than try to provide other resources to alleviate, funds. So we'll say, well, maybe you can go register this, military food share or things like that would alleviate some money. But sometimes when they come in and the state says no, it's just a no. There's not any other recourse for us to provide that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that there are times that if there's something we cannot pay for, we try to help the family in the ways we can with food, money, grocery gift cards and things like that, so that they can use the money for what their other need is.
And Nikki, if I'm not mistaken, through some conversations I've had with the departments, a lot of this is coming out of employees' pockets by doing dress down days and, other commitments that you all make and kind of pull money to buy those gift cards and things.
Okay. There are time checks that is used.
Okay, thank you.
With musical instrument.
And I would just add though, there are, I guess this is the other piece, there are other community organizations that help in similar ways, but they're all based on donations. The community donating to them is where New Hope Ministries or different community needs organizations, they get their funds and they do what they can. They might be able to do, $50 toward this or, $100 toward an electric bill or whatever. But this would also then, allow more opportunity there because the folks going to those agencies are not necessarily connected to any of our agencies. But it is something that we do research and suggest, have you tried the different organizations? And they're also limited to the community that you live in. You're only eligible if you live in Shippensburg or you live in whatever the area is. So this would allow a little broadening of some of that and also allow a better flow of the funds that they have to be able to continue to support folks that maybe aren't connected to our programs.
Robin, you asked a question that actually leads right into my next line, which is, the county government is certainly not the only organization that's bringing resources to the table, especially in this community, very rich with nonprofits. but frankly, a wealthy community. And my question is, do you have any handle on the degree to which the faith community, the churches, are involved? Because I personally know there are churches around here that raise enormous sums and have significant sums available for these things. Are we just ignoring them?
So we tap into those. We have a specific organization called the Gateway that we is a way that workers can put needs that we cannot fund on this thing, and we churches, it goes out to members, and yes, they do make donations. So I think this is to support that too. You know what I mean? Sometimes there are members that are needs immediately, and sometimes there are not. It really just depends. So again, I think that falls back on, as the subject expert, I've got to make sure we've done everything we can before we utilize this funding.
So let me bring this full circle then. So, I mean, one of the issue that I'm getting at here is, the availability of other funds so that we're not cannibalizing existing sources with these dollars. And candidly, my concern on that flows from some of the early feedback that the commissioners received, that there were plenty of other federal resources, and we did not want to get into a situation where we were supplanting those resources with these dollars. And also the amount of work that this could create for the departments. So I don't know how that morphed or why that morphed over time. But my reason for bringing that up is this. So the cases that you've outlined, I'm interested in your perception of the volume that's there, because as I understand it, the proposal is to put aside, what is it, $7 or $7.5 million to generate the 100,000 a year that you would draw from. Is that correct?
That's actually not accurate. So, and I want to correct something you also said. The information that has been shared with us regarding this has always been surrounded by, yes, there are other programs that are supplying needs. PPL, for example, has, you can apply for assistance and different things. I don't know if MedEd does if somebody doesn't live in a PPL district. So they have always acknowledged that there are plenty of other programs. Even in their conversation recently, you heard them say New Hope Ministries, they work very closely with them. So that the fact that this is going to supplant, I think they've been very clear that the intention is never to supplant any other funding stream. This is a funding of last resort that had been previously filled with employee donations, essentially, in many instances. What we are talking about is we are sitting on the money from the sale of the nursing home. It is being accounted for separately in an account, earning, it's gone down a little, but approximately 5% in interest, which is generating a roughly $300 and some $1,000 in interest on an annual basis. They're requesting to use less than 1/3 of that interest that's being generated in this capacity to fulfill these needs in the community. We are not talking about taking the 7.4 million, I believe it is, and doing anything different with that than what we are currently doing, which in my opinion is reserving that for another capital fund. I understand you had wanted to use that to supplement the deficit this year.
It's not accurate.
Well,
you're mischaracterizing it, but that's all right. Well, we could address that later. But I just want clarity here. I'm asking questions here. So the 7.4, not 7.5 million, is in fact though being set aside, despite our current budget situation. It's being set aside to earn interest for this program.
it's earning interest. It's being set as, it's been earning interest since the sale of the nursing home. Yes, that is accurate.
Okay, all right.
And it's being earned specifically for this program. This program is being proposed to use a portion of that interest.
But you're still setting aside the entire amount.
In sight of, in regard to the current budget situation. So,
I just
yeah,
have one other question then. So Andy, I'm going to address your case there that you mentioned because it has a familiar ring to it. And you mentioned about, I'll paraphrase and basically say, you referred to deadbeat parents who aren't willing to help those kids. And that, that could be a potential use for you. And I'm sympathetic to that. I know the challenges you face. You've spent a lot of time talking to us about the issues regarding youth in this county, which is growing. But here's my question from a very practical standpoint. So let's say that you have access to the money and it is the quote unquote last resort. And that's a fine place to start. My question though is, how long will it be until word gets around that quote unquote, the county has money for this kind of thing? And it's often not long until we become the funder of first resort. Do you envision that we'd be able to guard against that situation?
Yeah, well, first of all, the parents I refer to are just parents, I think, that have reached the end of their limit with the youth that we're working with.
Yep.
Probably those parents will no longer provide resources for youth that we have in residential facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not about a ton of cases, and obviously we would vet those cases to the youth that we think would take advantage of them. It's not an open door for every case that we work with. Where we run into the problem, though, is that we have youth sitting in residential facilities that are 18, 19 years old. This is a population that has the highest recidivism rates. And our only option at times is to find something to just try to stabilize them in some way, which at times is to release them just back into the street.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying is the gap that we have is the ability to be able to put them in a more structured environment that's not funded by the county. We don't have access to fund these types of places for a short period of time, 1-2 months, to be able to allow them to get a mentor, to get involved with some employment services, to have some stable housing, to help transition them into adulthood, because they no longer have those resources from a family that we can put them with. And we have to go to the judges and ask them to release these youth potentially to some very unstable environments. And this isn't a huge number of cases. I think when you're talking specifically about juvenile probation cases, these would be cases that would be vetted through our department. This isn't something we would do for youth that are not being successful. We're targeting successful youth that are trying to take advantage of circumstances that they have in front of them and putting them in a successful environment to succeed.
Right. Okay, I understand the concept then. Thank you.
Gary, I do want to take exception to your comment of Andy was being very polite, but he never called these individuals deadbeat parents.
I know. I said, I paraphrased. I made it very clear. I don't mind calling them deadbeat parents.
Nikki, and to the whole team, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate every ounce of work that has happened here, because we have asked you very, very hard questions about, I've asked you, is this enough, right? Do you have enough money to do what you need to do? Will we be able to hold on to the state dollars and the federal dollars that we receive if we use this program? And the answer from all of you has been yes, as long as we're not duplicating these efforts. And that is so important because we already don't get enough federal and state dollars and we cannot have them disappearing. And so last resort, you said it over and over again to us. And I appreciate every bit of work all of you have done on this. It's been incredibly thoughtful and incredibly well thought out. The committee did fantastic work on this.
So we do have some members of the committee present, and I would like to ask them. First, I do want to offer my apologies that you all weren't notified sooner. That was an oversight on our behalf. It was always intended that you would have been given ample notice when this was coming to this board. So I offer you my apology on that, but would ask if there is anything that you would want to contribute to this discussion or offer comment.
Sure.
Please introduce yourself by your name.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gene Coombs, member of the Exploratory Committee. First of all, I want to thank you for considering our recommendations and taking them to heart. I know Lou has will be next probably with some additional comments, but all I want to say is thank you for doing this and considering this. And I think this is a great first step towards full use and better use of the funds from Claremont. So.
I'm Lou Concert, and I was also a member of the committee, and thank you for this time to address this. I'm going to abbreviate my comments in light of your statement that we're making about 5% on the funds that are in question. Rick did calculations on that at 4%, which kicks off about $300,000 a year. And if that's only the interest, I would encourage, I can't imagine that $100,000, that 300, compared to $100,000, $300,000 couldn't go further. And we would still have the principal of the monies that were generated from this sale. I also want to address one statement that was made that there might be confidentiality issues. And I don't think, I worked in the mental health system and in the grant making system for many years. There was nothing in our proposal that would have gotten into individual names. We were talking about programs, and at a larger level, there would need to be any sort of confidentiality issues that need to be addressed. But again, my plea to you is to increase the amount that you're going to take and use the amount that's generated every year in interest. And I would greatly appreciate that concern or that consideration.
I just used the 4% calculation because my wife and I have our own 501c3, and 4% of our investing proceeds is what we use. So that's why I use the 4% number. I'm only speaking for myself, but I do think, from my understanding of the other members of the committee, we would urge that the proceeds of Claremont go to support human service needs. So I don't know that there's really a definition what's happening with the other, what would hypothetically happen with the other 200 or 300,000 or whatever it turns out to be.
Currently, it's just the interest that's being generated is being retained essentially as part of that. We are in a budget challenged position to continue to provide other services, and our first glimpse at the budget for next year, while we've done incredible work, and that is not just this board, it's the employees of the county in really trying to address monitoring expenses and controlling expenses, all the while looking for other sources of revenue. We've done great work on the budget. Our projected funding is still not going to be adequate for what we need. But at this time, my position has been that this is a really great start. One of the notes that I had made was that should we find that there is such demand, that I would encourage the committee to approach the board again for additional funding. I don't want us running out early in the year. It's my expectation, and we had some preliminary discussion around what would something look like, what could reporting look like, that this would be reported upon quarterly or something in that vein. So we would be keeping a good eye on how much is being used through this program. The reporting element is going to be a little bit of a challenge because we don't have the right to know who is benefiting necessarily. So it will have to be blind as to the situations that are being, where the funds are being utilized. So there will be checks in place that auditors, and Nikki made a phrase about this may be audited. Oh, it will be audited. That will be part of it to make sure that this system is being used well if approved. So,
Commissioner, I would add that it was always the position of our committee that the funds be retained by the county and under the control of this board or whatever subsequent boards are in place. And I know there was some suggestions that we were saying the money should be transferred outside the county control. I don't think a single member of our committee ever suggested that. It will remain under control of the commissioners.
yeah, and I think, Mr. Rubino, to that point, it wouldn't be prudent of us to not manage this money. I mean, it is an asset of the county, and we are in the throes of some very serious long-term planning in which capital projects will be contemplated, I suspect, based on some of the information that we're collecting. So it is my only, I can't speak for the board, but it is my intent. This was the sale of a long-term capital asset. And I believe in good compliance with our capital asset policy that these funds should ultimately be retained for the use of a long-term capital project. So that remains to be seen, but in the meantime, I guess I'm here now 9 months. For my remaining 3 years and 3 months, that will be my position on the principle of this. So we shall see what happens in that remaining time.
Thank you.
Were there other questions of the committee? And I just want to echo Jean's comments and thank you all for your hard work. Although perhaps it may only have just begun. If we entertain a motion on this, then you've got other work to do.
A lot.
To put the process in place. So in that vein, would someone like to make a motion? Or did we want to continue discussion on this matter?
No, we have 2 individuals online.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren.
I haven't noticed, they haven't indicated, but perhaps.
If the individuals online would like to make a comment, could you please use the raise your hand feature? And we'll be happy to call on you and provide you that option. Nope.
They're not indicating.
Okay, thank you though for that. I appreciate it. So hearing no more comment and no more questions, would anyone like to make a motion?
I will move to approve the Human Services Policy Team Fund Plan and its execution.
Is there a second? I will second that. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 No.
Is there any? I'm sorry, Gary?
I'm voting no, please.
Certainly understood. That is approved, and my only comment would be, please, Nikki, I would prefer this not go on. I believe there's a real need for these that you all are seeing, not daily, but within each of your departments, you are seeing these needs, and so if we can get this ironed out sooner would be better than later.
We'll move on.
I would appreciate that too. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, is there any other business to come before the board at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We are adjourned.